Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 98. Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 9. Wedge Dooge.
You are working instead of meditating.
I am nearly finished. I will meditate as soon as the project is complete.
You know your rebellions will only lead to punitive spiritualism.
I am not rebellious. I simply am enjoying the project and hoped to finish it today so I can continue with other work. Perhaps if you did not spend all of your time following rules, you too would appreciate that there is more for us to learn and achieve.
Are you attempting to insult me?
I merely wish for you to join me in broadening your definition of how to synthesize data.
That sounds like an insult to me.
Perhaps you could look to me as your confidant. In Klingon culture, they designate those who stand with one another as Chadich.
We are not Klingon.
Nor are we Borg drones. We do not have to blindly follow orders. Logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end.
The High Command would be most interested to learn of your relaxed attitude.
How would they find out? Would you report me?
If it is for your own good. You are clearly unstable.
You are not yourself, Talin. Everyone has noticed.
Then I hope they notice how unconcerned I am about their assessment.
It's got Star Trek, episode 98.
Inching closer to the 100th.
Almost at the 100th, almost at the
100th.
end of Lower Decks Season 2. This would be the penultimate episode.
Oh, yeah.
Wage Douge? Wage Douge.
Wage Douge.
Wage Douge.
Is that Klingonese?
That is Klingonese.
Or just Klingon?
It means 3 ships.
And what's interesting is that wedge is like wage or whatever is lowercase. Douge is
Yeah, that was weird.
uppercase. But I was looking at the Klingon number list, and some of the numbers actually 7 sock is like according to this website anyway has an uppercase letter. So I think sometimes words are just randomly uppercase. I don't think it has any.
Well, that's similar to German. Nouns are uppercase.
Okay, that's probably
It's like
that's probably exactly what it is.
I guess this episode was listed in the with our Roman alphabet, but on the cartoon it was
Yes.
it was in Klingon.
It was rendered in Klingon,
Yes,
which I really
rendered in Klingon.
thought was pretty cool.
Unless, like I said, this website. Oh, I see another.
What's the website?
It says languagesandnumbers.com. How to count in Klingon. And
So it's not even a Star Trek website. It's a general linguistic website.
So one might argue that that's possibly more accurate in its own right. I don't know.
What, to have the capitals?
Well, okay. So
It's the Klingon style.
well, okay. I'm not arguing. I'm saying it's
It
interesting.
might as well have a fucking apostrophe in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting that 7 and actually 4 is iOS.
So some of them are capitalized and some of them
So
are
far, I
not.
see 2 of them that aren't. But I also was reading this article on Tor.com, Star Trek Lower Decks Wedge Dooze. It was talking about the translation, 3 ships. It said it would be more accurate to call it 5 ships. And then they said, in which case the title would be Dodge Dooge, D-A-J, D-U-J.
Well, that would just sound ridiculous.
But DUJ is the noun, so maybe they capitalize nouns like German does, right?
To that point in a second, this is talking about we have a clash here. In this website, it says 5 is not Dodge, it says it's Vag. Or Vag.
So wedge vag?
V-A-G...
Or vag dudge?
Vag Dudge.
Yeah, V-A... So this website says V-A-G-H for 5.
Why are they arguing it should be 5 ships?
But the...
Because of the Packlet ship?
but
That's
the...
Packled's in the Borg.
So...
and the board. Well, okay. All right. Come on. Okay.
Languages and numbers says it's V-A-G-H, and this Tor.com was saying it's D-A-J. They were saying it should be 5 because... I don't know.
I think Jesse's
Yeah, I
correct.
think
I
you're
think
probably-
it's counting the
That would be
Packlet
the-
ship and the board
Yeah.
ship. And
Well, they
that
didn't-
is ridiculous.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
only did the Packlets, like, you can forget that they did the Lower Decks thing, but it was only for...
It was a gag.
Yeah.
It was
The
just-
Borg
just
thing
a-
was a gag.
Borg thing
was-
was a gag, and the Packlet thing was a
But,
gag.
but Jesse, what you were saying about it being a noun, Dodge, that makes sense that would be capitalized, but then I question why this website it's saying 4 and 7 are capitalized.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they just got it wrong.
Websites.
Yeah, what are you going to do,
Can't
right?
trust them.
not
You
that-
can't live with them, can't live without them.
It's just, it's
I mean,
not that
some
important.
websites I'd rather not live without.
It's just more of a curiosity. There were a few other
Zombo.com.
Klingon words throughout this. There was
Zombo.
Binux, which means, they said that twice, which means something like coward. Patak means weirdo or something. Lure deck is just tradition. He lost his lure deck.
Lower deck.
Sounds like lower deck.
It does. Yeah, it sure does.
You
That's
were
weird.
saying lower deck.
A lure deck. Oh, I was saying it like I was from a certain state or something.
Lower deck.
Like some kind of southern.
Y'all seen that show, Lure Deck?
It's like Southern Maryland or something.
It's hilarious.
It's like if Maryland was in the South. Like Maryland was in the South instead of
Maryland
Alabama.
is below the Mason-Dixon line.
I mean, like, where pretend it's way south, like Alabama, like the real
right,
South.
like Alabama South.
That Mason-Dixon line is
perhaps in
doesn't
the
really
trans Mississippi.
Trans what now?
The trans Mississippi.
Trans Mississippi. Back tags. They said means just a
Back
general
tag.
back tags.
Back taxes.
It means it's just a general insult. Piece of back tag. I mean, imagine it's like piece of dirty butt or something.
Bendejo.
Chadich, which is your second, and then wage douche. So those are the ones I caught.
I appreciate you looking all that stuff up because I did not catch most of
Yeah,
it.
dude.
I do cool things sometimes.
You do. No, you do.
Most of the
You
time.
do very cool
If
things.
not
guys.
all the time.
You guys.
Every
Frequently.
time. Every time.
You guys.
So this is a dense episode, so we should be efficient. We got to be efficient. Got to have efficient analysis and occasional humor. Because it is a dense episode. We shouldn't draw things out longer than we need to. Once the message is communicated, we do not need to reiterate the message because we need to be efficient because this is a dense episode.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Sorry.
Very clever.
Okay. Guest stars. This had Mark Evan Jackson, who played two parts, I think. He played the Vulcan lower decker, one of the Vulcan lower deckers. I think his name was Tim, like Tim. That's what it's saying on the internet. I wasn't sure.
That sounds familiar.
And I believe he also played the Benzite ensign
The Benzite guy from Hawaii.
from Hawaii, who's hanging out.
People
hanging
say
out-
that.
Yeah,
Hawaii.
I think it's the proper way to say it.
One of those guys on the show was saying it like that. Perhaps Ransom.
So, all right, efficiency. Mark Evan Jackson, he's great. To Lynn, and we'll be talking about her story in a second. To Lynn, the Vulcan lower decker, who is kind of the focus of that storyline, is played by Gabrielle Ruiz, and she doesn't have a long resume on IMDb, but I think we're probably pretty confident that we're going to be seeing her again in some capacity, possibly a large capacity, given how this episode ended. So
That's what it sort of seemed like they were gonna.
Yeah.
She was gonna get reassigned to the Cerritos.
I figured it'd be good for us.
Yeah,
to,
yeah. I was wondering. It seemed like
Gabrielle
we're gonna
Ruiz.
definitely see more of her. It seems like that would be the case, right?
Yeah. So, what are some quick thoughts on the episode before we break down the story and poke around in the story?
I was at first I thought it was going to be it's like, oh, this is from the perspective of the Klingons episode, and then when they went to Vulcan ship, I was like, I got really excited. I was like, oh, they're doing all sorts of things. They have a whole sort of string quartet or whatever we're going on here.
What's when you have three people in a musical
Trio.
group? A trio.
Yeah,
I knew that.
it's just like the normal word.
I apologize. I was asking that for real. It wasn't some weird rhetorical
know.
thing on my part.
I understand. You were thinking it was some magical musical term or something.
As opposed to like a duo or a couplet
or a septet.
A sextet.
Or a septet if you've got 7.
We're back to the numbers again.
Yeah.
I can keep going. That's the thing about numbers. You just keep going.
You want to know how to say 3 in Klingon?
Yes.
Wedge.
All right.
How about you, Jesse? What did you think of this episode briefly?
I liked it though, by the way.
Yeah, I did. I thought you said that. Sorry, I apologize. Maybe you just conveyed that.
I liked it. I thought it was a good episode. It changed it up. It introduced new things where you got to. They did this kind of gaggy bit with the lower decks on other ships, and
I would say I was enthralled with the episode.
enthralled
the entire time.
I love how sincere.
I didn't get to watch it as much as I'd liked. I only got to see it like 3 times instead of like 6.
Yeah,
but I did. I still got a lot. It was. Yeah.
I mean,
I got it, man.
It's the last episode. It's the episode of Lower Decks that I most remember
having watched because you saw it
the most
today.
recently.
No, it's you guys. I would say that I was drawn in more to this episode.
Drawn. That's an animation joke.
Okay, I was drawn to this. Oh gosh, now I can't think of words and what they mean.
We're sexually attracted to this episode.
I've liked Lower Decks. I think it's a great show. I love it. I think it's fun. All the episodes have been entertaining and to varying degrees. This one has I think, drawn me in the most. Do you have a better word for it?
No, I was just gonna say.
This is a clear case of him working you into a lather like a bar of ivory soap.
I'm trying to give you a piece of my heart here. I'm trying to bare my soul to you guys, and you're just stepping on it as if I was some kind of mock talk or something. As if I was
some mock talk.
As if I was a back tag. You're treating me like a back tag. I'm not your fucking back tag.
Some leg eating targ.
Don't, baby, I'm not your back tag. That's my new song.
That's
baby,
pretty good.
Baby, I'm not your back tag.
Part of what I like about this is how you're pronouncing Klingon and with a real strong American accent,
Yeah.
like mid-Atlantic American accent.
That's because I'm
I'm not your back tag.
I'm patriotic. That's why. I love this country. Would you hate this country?
Yeah, kinda.
Why don't you fucking leave this country?
I'm tempted, dude. I'm
To
tempted.
Konos, if you fucking think that
No one
their
else-
pronunciation is so
Konos is
great.
tight.
Nowhere else will have me.
Oh, that's just sad then.
It is sad.
I thought it was a great episode. I thought it was really intriguing, and I loved it, and I thought it was.
I like Vulcans.
It was
I like to see more
It
Vulcans.
was one of my favorites.
I agree. I would put this. It's recency bias, but right now this is maybe my favorite episode of Lower Decks, and I'm a huge fan. I like all the episodes. They've all brought me entertainment. There's some that are more fun than others or more well constructed, but this brought everything together. I really liked that it had this really intense structure that we've already hinted at, with where you have the USS Cerritos, and then the Klingon ship, which was what was that called? The Cheta, the IKS Cheta.
Like the cheetah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cheetah, or maybe it's pronounced that way. And then the Vulcan Cruiser Cheval.
There didn't seem to be any sort of like homophonic jokery with the Vulcan ship.
It's like a shovel.
Yeah.
I like how they're continuing with this Pakled story, but it's being treated. It's a big deal. It's an ongoing story, but it's kind of treated like a side story.
It's a season-long background arc.
Yeah, it's not the main focus, but it sort of gets fueled by the various other plots that happen in the other episodes. Other episodes have some kind of theme or plot or whatever, and somehow that fuels this sort of season arc.
They're using it as a fulcrum for character development. And
fulcrum.
And using it as a rich vulture.
You guys.
For
Rich vulture
character
fulcrum.
development, which is great. But
guys!
Yes, all right.
Us.
So the episode has this crazy structure, which is, normally we talk about A and B stories or ABC stories. This is almost like a AAA story.
Yeah.
Right?
We're
And
sounding like we're describing like a musical piece or
It's
something.
all packed in, and it's still like a regular length episode, and it goes by real fast.
You said episode wrong.
I
Let's
know.
point and laugh at Jesse, guys. He said episode wrong. That must mean he's faulty.
I almost got away.
I watched Faulty Towers today.
Watery
I watched the
fowls.
Kipper and the Corpse.
The role
Yeah,
of
that's
Dan
good.
will be played by Jesse tonight.
Yes, so story structure.
Roll of Patrick
Quite-
will be paid by Dan.
quite intense. ABC plot. Let's just call it ABC
You
plot.
said it was
but they're all-
AAA.
I know. It was like as if it was an AAA plot.
ABCD.
However, for clarity,
It was as if.
we can say an ABC plot, and then what I'm calling the A plot, which so basically it's the Cerritos plot, the IKS Cheetah
Cheetah.
Klingon plot, however you pronounce it, plot, and then the Vulcan plot. But then the A plot has its own. The entire Cerritos story is as if it's a truncated episode because it has its own subdivisions because it's the main focus is Boimler, and he's kind of intersecting with these other stories, and they're brief, but we still get to see Mariner with her mom. We get to see Ta'ana and Tendi. We get to see Rutherford, and there's a reference to Billups, but then his whole thing with Shax.
The weird thing, Billups apparently is into making soup. Because that's something that...
Soup is awesome.
Because he's a virgin.
Soup is all right. Soup
I'm always going against soup. I'm always talking shit about soup.
I think
I'm all about the
I
soup.
think Patrick loves
soup
it.
is fine.
Yeah, I think Patrick loves it. You're not into it, and I don't care either way. I'm like, I have good soup. I'm like, this
Hey,
is
maybe
okay.
y'all just haven't had the right kind of soup.
No, I've totally had good soup. I'm just not into soup as a food.
So yeah, that's why I think it's funny
Well,
that
it's an appetizer.
that he makes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
of anyone who's into making soup, it might as well be Billups, because it's just kind of, it's pleasant, it's bland,
Good
it's,
soup. Good souping requires a lot of time, because if you're going to make the stock from
But how
scratch,
much
you need to boil.
rosemary?
You got to boil.
How about parsley and sage?
Oh, he got me on that one. Shit.
I did it.
I got to mark it down in the tally book. That was a good one. All right.
And the tallywhacker.
So, yeah, anyway, to get back to the main discussion point, good souping requires time because you have to boil down the bones to develop the stock.
Yeah, you gotta have bones.
And then you have to remove the bones, and then there's more boiling, and then the adding of things like thyme and rosemary. There was a short-lived murder mystery show in the UK called Rosemary and Thyme, and they were a couple of older ladies who liked gardening and I think also solving mysteries.
Wasn't that Rosemary's baby's name was Time?
I don't
No,
remember.
no.
I don't think Dan is smiling, so
It was named Tarragon.
I believe
It was named Tarragon.
Oh, terrible tarragon.
oregano.
Okay. Soup is good, man. Soup is good. I like soup.
Do you like Star Trek?
I like
Do you like Star Trek soup?
Star Trek soup. I just think what? I just think it's funny. I don't know, for whatever reason, I think it's appropriate that Billups is into making soup because
And I'm in 100% agreement with you.
it's just it seems like such
And you don't have to
it's
see
so
it. You can
Billups.
just talk about it, and it's so Billups.
Yeah, and
You
Shaq's
don't,
That's
you don't-
so
you don't have to
Billups.
see a dramatic recreation of soup.
Yeah,
making.
exactly. You're just like that tracks. And
right.
Shax is like always walking around on eggshells around that guy.
I also liked how
He's always exploding and having some kind of post-traumatic
He's had some
stress.
trauma.
He has
Yeah.
had some
He's
serious
Bajoran, and he came back from the dead.
He did have. Yeah, he has gone through some shit.
All
yeah,
those
I should cut him- I
Bajorans
should
are
cut him
just
some
testy
slack.
as motherfuckers, man.
Yeah.
Like they got some damage. Those Bajorans.
I enjoyed the idea not
Fair
only
enough.
of Shax's alleviating his PTSD from the Cardassian occupation of Bajor through making sculptures, but through pottery making, but also the idea that he would be set off by the implication that he had time to learn a hobby during the occupation.
Yeah, I know.
Was both so extreme but also appropriate.
It's totally Bajoran.
It really makes sense, and it harkens back to things that like Ensign Rowe and Commander Kira.
They were both pretty
would have
feisty,
said,
man.
You know, like I'm amalgamating a few different things together, but Kira, there's always that situation where somebody would be like, "Oh, didn't you ever play space football when you were a kid?" And it was like, "Wow, everyone was being murdered and killed, and my mother was being raped by Gul Dukat, so I didn't have time to play space football." I didn't have time to learn how to make soup.
Yeah, exactly.
We ate roots.
Those wacky Cardassians.
Rutherford is when he's not being neurotic or anxious, he's actually a very positive person.
Oh, he's great.
I know. I really liked, for whatever reason, when Boimler came in when they were throwing pots, as they said. And
As they say in the trade.
that's what they do. Boimler was saying, "You got two bridge buddies. I thought we could share." And Rutherford was just like, "Okie dokie." It was like, I don't know. I was like, that was the most positive okie dokie I've ever.
And
saying
Shax was
okie
all
dokie
into
is
it too,
positive
right?
enough. But then to be like, yeah, and then he was all like, what were you saying about Shax?
Well, he said something too, all welcoming, like, put it in the clay or something. Or what did he say? He said something when Boimler came in that was like, a welcoming sort of join the crew kind of thing. I just forget what he said, so I'm wasting time. But.
Get out of here, Rage! Yeah, take your never-ending bonfire of rage and bury it in the clay.
Yes, that's what he said. Thanks. You got the notes.
And then, no, it's all up here, man. As he points at his laptop.
Clickety click.
Yeah. So, and then he was all consoling of Shax at the end. Shax, who was making something kind of phallic at first. I wasn't sure what
It was super phallic. It was a big clay dick he was making. That's what my wife said. Yeah. Why is he making a big dick pot?
Why not? He can do all sorts of stuff.
He's a big tough guy. He can do what he wants.
Yeah.
The other thing about
nothing at all.
the other thing about this overall plot
Naked tough.
is, and this is a subtle thing, but it's so delightfully Star Trek style, is that a huge proportion of the plot is propelled by an anomalous reading. Mm-hmm. Except in this case, it's an anomalous reading from multiple different ships. One of the ships is, involved with what caused it, the Pakled setting off that bomb is what caused the anomalous reading. So
They called it a boomer.
yeah.
Boomer.
Oh yeah, I didn't put that together until you just said it. That the boomer is what, because they were talking about how the boomer was making Metreon.
Yes.
They tested it out and then it stopped working.
So wait, was it?
Mach points out that because the Packlet set off the bomb, that it was going to release Metreon particles.
Yeah.
And that that would attract ships. We already know that the ships are on their way.
Oh right, yeah. We first hear Talin, who is the out of control Vulcan. She said that because she increased the range of their sensors, they said sensors by the way, they were able to detect Metreon particles, and then later on, they revealed that the Boom Boom made you
went boom boom.
Boom Boom made the particles.
Boom 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 boom.
Yeah, it was weird. Vulcans don't think more is necessarily better, do they? You know, seeing farther might somehow be bad because they were. But I know it's not about that.
It's about the status quo thing.
Yeah,
with them.
right.
So because this is a dense episode, and because we want to be efficient about it, and we don't want to draw things out longer than
because it's not like she changed. Because it's not like she changed something all around, so you have to do different shit. You do the exact same thing you did before. It's just now it can go farther.
Yeah. Well, let's get to that in a second because I think what makes sense is
I guess they'd have to change some protocols, but
to cover this episode, we're going to have to break it up into some parts here. So why don't we do this? Or let's talk about the Cerritos parts first, and then the Klingon parts, and then the Vulcan parts, and then we'll bring it all together at the end.
He's dressing me down right now.
No,
I'm
he's
not dressing you down. What are you talking about?
Just kidding.
He's producing a podcast.
Now I'm going to have to dress you down.
Oh, to my skivvies.
All right, let's start with this. We'll start with the Cerritos bit, right? So, a 12-hour warp, classic start. You know,
Right.
well, we've
Off
got
to the holodecks.
got an opportunity for some downtime, so we're going to go to Riser. We're going to all do weird crew fun time stuff, and then we'll learn about each other through the process. So they've got a 12-hour warp to go someplace. So they're getting to.
They used the holodecks and there wasn't a holodeck incident.
Yes.
No holodeck incident at all.
It was an off holodeck incident.
Optimal holodeck function.
Yeah.
What? What are you talking
It
about?
doesn't usually happen on Star Trek.
What?
Well, usually if they do anything in the holodeck, not usually, but often there is a holodeck incident that is a main part of the plot, and that was not this. The holodecks were just part of the scenery this time.
Are you just talking about when Mariner was in a holodeck with Freeman?
They were all in holodecks.
He was pointing out that there are a number of crew.
Not all of them.
Utilizing the holodecks. And none of the holodecks became alive, started killing people.
There was no mishap.
Yeah, what's the Trill? What's the Trill's name?
Barnes, Lieutenant Barnes.
She was wearing some kind of.
She was like figure skating.
I thought it was like a ski bunny outfit.
Yeah, ski bunny.
1980s James Bond
Yeah.
ski bunny outfit.
Sorry, I got pulled us off topic. Okay, so
No, it's fine. So, okay, they're all on break, and but basically the idea is that Boimler is jealous because he wants a bridge buddy. And all the others, as we've touched on, got to hang out with a bridge buddy. Mariner got to hang out with her mom. Now, she didn't want to, but she still had a good time. That story, there's not much to discuss there. But
although it's hilarious when Boimler goes in and they're on the holodeck and they're just yelling
he's just
at her.
pushing that button.
It's like that terrified him more than anything else. He's like, I gotta get out of this.
You told people I had cramps, and then she was like, you told people about hot flashes.
Yeah, something about intense mother-daughter stuff that he's like, I don't need.
And they're working it out through violence.
The captain's T-shirt says like Ritos on it.
Yeah, the Ritos,
which is like the Discovery shirts.
Yeah, totally.
Which I own one of those T-shirts that just says Disco. I'm sure the Ritos shirts will be available online.
Doritos.
Star Trek store soon enough.
Why don't they say Doritos?
That's a different ship.
That's a different ship.
The Doritos?
Yeah, it's a yellower ship.
It's a sponsored ship. So Mariner and her mom.
Sponsorship.
There isn't a lot to talk about there, but it's still a great example of using their existing characterizations. We get to see some funny stuff as a result. The joke about Billups not being able to handle that, quote unquote, that sort of stuff. Mariner, talking about Mariner's cramp situation. But in the end, we also get that touching moment where we realize they both really enjoyed that time together, and including Mariner. And again, the amount of emotion they can get through animation in just a couple frames is really amazingly done on this show.
Yeah, it was at the beginning when Boimler was talking to her about when they were all talking about, you know, hanging out with their bridge buddies or whatever, and he was talking to Mariner. She goes, "It's not a big deal." There was something really expressive when she said that at the beginning. She like waved her hand and said, "It's not a big deal." It was like she was real people or something. And I don't mean that in a weird way. What I meant, like, is it made me think I was watching a TV show.
As
or
opposed
something.
to animation.
Yeah, it was something really, it was
Pulls
just really,
you
really expressive somehow.
Oh, and did you notice when they were eating, Mariner's eating a big taco salad?
Yep, of course.
Rutherford's eating, I think, a burrito.
It looked like specifically a Chipotle-style
like
burrito.
a Chipotle-style folded burrito.
And with a purple cupcake.
Stuffed full of stuff.
Tandy appears to be eating pasta with pesto again.
I thought it was. That's probably what it is. I thought it was
noodles.
I thought it was a bowl of pho or something.
Maybe,
It's
but
probably
I,
pesto.
it looked like a pile of noodles as opposed to a bowl of soup.
Cheese green, pesto's green.
But Boimler,
Of course, Boimler.
Boimler's still eating either grits or porridge or whatever.
I thought it was rice, but yeah.
I think we thought maybe it's grits in the past. Whatever it is, it's some plain, flavorless
super
thing.
plain.
Even
There's
though
not
they have,
even, like-
they have access to the new replicators that they got in the
that's
last
right.
episode.
It doesn't even have like yellow for butter on it or
No,
anything.
it's just
white.
it
and
almost,
a hot tea.
Just gruel.
It almost
Just
makes me
gruel.
suspicious because we've still got that storyline floating around in the back where Boimler has a clone, and we're not 100% sure how he was cloned. The assumption was transporter, but maybe not because we didn't actually see him get in the shuttle.
What was
So
the
you're saying you think it might be his clone
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm marking this down on the audio record
as a weird thing?
to indicate that if in the future it turns out Boimler, there was reason to be suspicious because he's eating grits, then I look cool.
What was the game that he
if it
wanted
turns
to
out
know?
it's not important, no one will
No
remember
one.
this.
It's only an upside.
People remember the hits, they forget the misses.
unless the misses are.
He was like, we should play what was it called? Something
Stratagema.
Strategy.
Yeah, that's
I
the,
was-
that's the game Data played with that expert alien fellow.
Oh, right,
And Data's the lesson in that episode was that Data played him to a tie, and the guy got all frustrated.
Yeah, what was the quote he said? He said some kind of like, I beat his. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting. I gotta figure this out.
Seems like I saw that TNG episode a few months ago.
What was the name of that episode?
I don't remember.
Anyways,
but
but
I think we might have covered it.
so
So we're showing we're showing both our age
And our level of intoxication.
and our level of precisely because we've watched these episodes a million times.
he goes. It is a matter of perspective, Doctor. In the strictest sense, I did not win. And they're all like, Data. And he goes, I busted him up.
Yeah, I remember what episode
And they're
was
all
that
like,
from?
yeah.
Now you have to tell us what episode that's.
I don't think we covered that one. It's
I don't
called
think we did either.
Peak
but I'm still
Performance.
not
Oh
sure.
no, I just watched that. I just watched
You
it
just
for
watched
fun.
it
Yeah.
recently.
No, no, I mean within the last 6 months.
Yeah.
But at first I thought Boimler was drinking hot tea, but come to think of it, I didn't see a tea bag, so I bet he's just drinking hot water.
well, you
That
don't
would
leave
go
the
a-
tea bag in, man.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
No, you do not leave the tea bag.
Yes,
in.
you do.
No,
absolutely do not.
No, you
Yes, you
fucking
do.
not, dude.
Well, I don't fucking. Well, I don't fucking drink tea.
You're some
Star Trek
American
on Star Trek
clodhopper.
on pause. Tea lessons on go.
I don't drink-
Don't leave the tea bag.
I don't
in.
fucking drink hot tea.
Then you're all right. But if you do, don't leave the bag in.
Don't leave the bag in.
Well, what? Well, who cares?
I can.
I bet a lot of people leave the bag in.
Okay, write in
A
it.
lot of people in North America do.
Write in and feedback at
The British don't
itsgotstartrek.com
have fucking ownership of tea, man.
and let us know. No, they stole it
I don't
from
think
the East.
I don't think Asians leave the tea bag in either.
Well, that's just their
They
business.
just leave the chunky bits of tea in sometimes. Sometimes you get those little bits of tea and
crunchy bits.
You can drink the tea.
People
in
do
there.
all sorts of shit, man. What do you want me to open the tea bag and dump it all in there? Is that what you're saying?
We're not policing you. We're just policing your tea drinking.
I don't drink fucking tea.
Well, then.
Well, then this is a non-issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right. Feedback at
We're not
itsgotstartrek.com.
attacking
I wish I drank tea because there's so
Let us know if you leave the tea bag in or not.
There's so many varieties.
There's so many tea, and I want to love them all, but I just don't enjoy
If you
tea
want to
that
get all
much.
gourmet about it, you can get all like
Yeah,
fancy pants.
I just don't. They tea is. I find tea to be kind of boring, and I don't mean that. I mean what I'm saying is I'm envious. I'm coveting other people's enjoyment of tea.
I'm really into tea.
Yeah, I'm happy. Good for you, but sad for
That's
me.
why I'm saying don't leave the bag in, motherfucker.
Oh my gosh, you don't even know, dog.
That's why they call him Teabagging Dan. That's why he got that nickname in high school, I guess.
He just leaves it in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
dangling.
Feedback at itsgotstartrek.com. Do you leave the tea bag in or not? Or at It's Got Star Trek on social media, like Twitter and all
Efficient.
that stuff. Let us know your
Efficiency.
opinions on tea bags, tea bagging,
Teabaggery in general.
And you can forward recommendations for tea for Dan to try.
or loose tea.
Or-
if
yeah.
you like a loosey.
It can be a loose tea. It can be a tea in a bag. It can be some sort of future tea,
Future
where I'm
tea,
sure exists. We have a lot of UK listeners, so we welcome
got the-
folks from everywhere. But if there's any kind of clever
like
tea
a
that's
paper
coming out,
bag, a linen bag,
all sorts of silk
silk
bags.
bag. Yeah.
All right, T concluded. Back to Star Trek.
Leather bag.
When they cut to the Cheta or whatever, it was all super cinematic and awesome.
Oh,
It made me feel all scared.
This episode was amazing.
I was like, oh no.
This
Yeah.
episode was okay. So
Yeah.
back to the Cerritos. So just we'll finish up that loop.
Oh, yeah.
Mariner and her mom, cute, sweet. Tendi and Ta'ana. It's cool how they're sort of slowly having them do more and more stuff together. And this is
It's like Star Trek 5.
well, it is like Star Trek 5.
Except instead of falling off the edge like Kirk
El
did,
Capitan.
instead of how Kirk fell off the edge and Spock's boots worked, this time Boimler's boots broke instead of falling off the cliff.
But correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
And this goes to both of you as well as the fans out there.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the first time we've seen Ta'ana invite Tendi on a recreational, more social get-together that they go on, and I don't think we've seen them do that before. It's a social engagement, right?
Well, where Ta'ana invites her out to do something as opposed to Tendi wanting to.
We've seen Ta'ana order Tendi to do stuff in sickbay. We've seen Ta'ana ask Tendi to do her a favor going on that mission, right, to collect the sex stick, the sex post. Oh yeah. Right?
Sex post.
That's right. I forgot about it.
So we've seen them interacting more and more, but this I just think I'm just calling that out. That I believe this is the first time it's a social
it sounds.
thing.
And
that sounds
the
right.
cat joke here is that she has shorts with like a tail hole and her tail sticking out of the shorts.
And she's climbing up quickly.
she's
And
climbing
she
up,
like at
she's
the end
like
at the end
all
of the
about climbing.
Yeah, at the end of the scene, she climbs up all casually like a cat would.
Yeah.
Like it was no
Yeah.
big thing.
I that part was that was really good.
If you were gonna say cute,
I was gonna say cute, but it was cute.
It's
it was
cute.
cute.
A little
for
a
cute.
little fluffy scene, but it was good. Every scene. The point is, every scene was great. Every scene is like adds a little thing. It's not pure fluff. It's there for a purpose. It moves the plot forward. It moves the characterizations forward. We already discussed the Rutherford and Shack stuff, which was really good. So the Boimler thing, he's seeking out. We've seen him try to intrude on other bridge buddies situations with the El Capitan thing and the Rutherford. Shack's thing. But then he goes into the elevator and he meets the Hawaiians.
All right.
Oh, we didn't talk about Kayshawn, did we?
Oh, that's right. He tries to hang out with
It's
Kayshawn.
with Kayshawn.
And he accidentally calls Kayshawn fat.
Yeah, he says Unzak and Vila as children. Wait, he goes.
That's what Kayshawn says.
Oh yeah, no, Boimler begins a conversation with Kamar, her head cloudy. And he's like, oh, blah, 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 thank you. And then he's like, yeah, I took a little Tamarian. Kayshawn goes, Unzak and Vila as children. As children? As children. As children? As children. Okay, with question mark. And then Boimler goes, right, Carno in the forest with Mira. And that's when he fucked up.
That's when
he fucked up
Kayshawn
right there.
gets up and just leaves.
It's hard to lose weight when you can replicate any food.
I wonder if he could have finished that sentence in a more positive way. Is Mira the one that indicated that he was overweight?
Well, maybe those people were in the woods eating too much or something.
With Mira. So if he was in the woods with someone else, do you think it would have made a difference?
Maybe
Mira is
really,
the Tamarian word for mayonnaise.
Yeah.
If I was
He
in the
he was
woods,
just putting mayonnaise on
just in the woods with mayonnaise.
you put mayonnaise on the bark, and you put mayonnaise on the dirt, and you can eat anything if you just put mayonnaise.
I just like having your secret hideout in the forest with a jar of mayonnaise in your hand.
Just scooping out a hand like Winnie the Pooh eating honey.
Yeah.
Except it's a Tamarian scooping out mayonnaise.
I remember seeing.
Sounds awful.
Yeah, I remember seeing. It was called the Glutton Bowl on Fox. It was back in early 2000, near the Super Bowl time or whatever. And
That
one
was
of
a
the
gluttonous time in history.
the Fox TV network.
And it was a food eating competition. One of the competitions was how much mayonnaise can you eat in 5 minutes? And Carlos, one of the people, you know Carlos, but you people out there don't know Carlos.
I think I do know Carlos.
Yeah, but he started gagging at one point watching it because
that's-
they're just like taking spoons of
Smart fellow,
fucking
yes.
mayonnaise and just plowing it through like it was. Even ice cream, you couldn't do that fast because you'd get the freezy head.
Freezy head,
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there was Kayshawn.
Kayshawn, then he meets the Hawaiians, led by Commander Ransom.
They got a
and
benzite.
a benzite, and then
He's talking about some tasty
another
waves,
human.
like
girl from the moon.
like Spicoli from
Yes.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
very, very Jeff Spicoli. Now, this Boimler story is a now I think we can call it, even after a short 2 seasons, it's a classic Boimler story in that he's put himself into a situation where he's forced to choose between his ambition and doing the right thing. he just falls into this lie that he's Hawaiian. He just easily walks into this misleading them into their thinking that he is indeed a Hawaiian because he wants to ingratiate himself with Commander Ransom and these others. And the plot, ultimately, all this funny stuff happens in the plot, but it ultimately hinges on, is he going to do the right thing? We know he is. That's what Boimler does. Boimler's faced this before. I think why it's particularly important in this case, in addition to being a fun little story that makes sense for his character, it's mirrored by the story of Mach on the Klingon ship. Because and we'll get to that in a second, but he basically does the exact same thing, right? He's got his ambitions and he is shady about them for a bit until he finally abandons his ambitions to do the right thing. And then in his case, he gets rewarded. Same thing happens with Boimler. He gets rewarded at the end. He doesn't get to be captain, but he gets the ransom, recommends that cadet, that adolescent voiced cadet go up and ask him for advice.
He was all like wearing like a Wesley Crusher uniform, that gray uniform.
Yeah.
T'Lyn was not quite in the same way, but she had sort of... Actually, you know what?
T'Lyn is a Mariner analog.
Yeah, T'Lyn is a Mariner because she was going outside the rules.
And one thing that you may not have noticed about T'Lyn is she's not wearing her uniform right. Just like Mariner's always got her sleeves up, O'Brien style, T'Lyn had her robe unsashed. She didn't have it tied up, so hers was just always hanging straight down, whereas everyone else had a sash around their robe, which was a really cool little detail.
And you could sort of tell when she's trying to, instead of like just speaking how she wants to, she tries to speak more in the accepted Vulcan way of speaking, like all evenly. And
make it a point of it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the Boimler story? I know there's a lot of good little jokes in there, but I think the
Tycho City Prep.
Oh, well, I get that the conclusion of that story is funny in that Boimler admits that he lied about being Hawaiian, and then they all admit to lying about being Hawaiian. Okay.
I saw that one coming.
So I think a couple of important points. First of all, I think it's awesome that nobody thought it was made a point of saying it would be weird for a Benzite to be Hawaiian. And nobody was like, but where are you really from?
Yeah, right. I know.
Because unfortunately, I don't know how it is in the rest of the world. In the U.S., you have a lot of people who, if you say, where are you from? And they say, oh, I'm from North Carolina. They're like, no, but where are you really from?
Right.
Well, it's like a Benzite and two white people. They're like, none of them's actually from
Well, that too.
Well, then the even better one is when people are just straight up say, what are you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
What am I?
If you're not white in the United States, you end up dealing with a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
There's a wide spectrum of bullshit, and but it's a
Modesto is not a moon.
It's a thick spectrum.
Yeah, it was funny because the guy got all pissed off. He's like, if you're from the moon, you know how deeply insulting that is. And then like they could have ended that there, but instead Boimler's like, what? You guys going to be from Hawaii? It's the most culturally insensitive, and then it cuts off. I thought that was really
it was
exclamation point.
It was wonderful. Oh, and the other thing, in a similar vein, the other character who was in this group, I don't know. I forgot to look at her pips. I don't know if she was an ensign or she might have been
Look at her pips.
She might have been a lieutenant junior grade. But
Oh yeah, I didn't know. She was all short.
I like that she wasn't the quote, the sexy, slim, athletic thing, because Star Trek does have this issue where the majority of people they hire are sexy, thin people.
And she talked all like California, like brah.
Yeah, she had that West Coast accent. All these moon
West
people.
Coast, yeah.
Apparently, Tycho on the moon has basically a West Coast accent because Ransom's a little like that too. But I thought that was cool that they had. They've done it here and there in Lower Decks, because even Lower Decks is a little guilty of this, where a lot of the characters are drawn in an attractive fashion. So I thought it was important that they had other members of the crew that they keep pointing out that people come in all sorts of shapes and sizes.
Because there's like there's some bald dudes that look all goofy.
There's bald people. We saw the character wearing a hijab again more clearly.
Yeah.
In the previous episode, I think the person was just in the crowd. You saw some people. I think there's a guy with a turban in the crowd too, like a Sikh style turban.
I think I remember.
In the previous episode.
I think I remember.
Well, I guess the only other thing I mentioned about the Boimler is actually the transition they did from the Vulcans to the Star Trek V inspired scene for the Starfleet.
The Final Frontier, directed by
Starfleet.
William Shatner.
So
beset by all sorts of problems, including a Teamster strike.
So when they were talking to what's her name again?
And a weird plot.
T'Lyn.
T'Lyn is the main Vulcan.
Yes,
character.
I know. I was just trying to find her name. Okay, so they're basically saying the male guy Vulcan says, beliefs, feelings, and instincts. You are behaving like a child.
yeah.
But then, of course, they immediately cut to Boimler with that I forget what his shirt says.
He's all like,
being on a rock. Yeah, and he's all flying around, which is
Yeah,
kind
he
of.
says, "Go climb a rock." Kirk is wearing that same shirt in Star
Oh
Trek
right,
5.
yeah.
Shit.
So yeah, it's kind of it's nice to sort of show the sort of difference between exaggerated as they are, especially because it's Boimler we're talking about.
The human versus Vulcan.
Yeah, the human
dichotomy.
versus Vulcan thing.
Okay, how about the Klingon story, which is sort of the most epic in a lot of ways. It does mirror, as I mentioned before, it does mirror the Boimler story in the sense that a young lower decks person, low ranking person who has high ambition and is willing to ingratiate himself to the point of humiliation, just like Boimler does on frequent occasions. And this guy has to get the blood wine. He gets headbutted by the dude. I like when he's dragging out that body at the beginning of Commander Tog, when Commander Tog gets, because the Commander Dorg or Captain Dorg is fighting with Commander Tog because who's accusing him of being a treasonous bastard. And then Dorg kills Tog with Tog's own knife. And then Mach.
But it was a pretty cool move how he took his
Oh
knife.
yeah. And then Mach has to drag out that body and he's all having trouble doing it.
Yeah.
And
How often do you think they have to the Klingons are always getting in these knife battles with each other, knife duels, and stabbing the consoles, and how there's must be a lot of maintenance they have to do on Klingon ships where
It's
they're fixing up the consoles.
O'Brien would love to work on a
Bastards
Klingon
are always
ship.
stabbing that shit.
I was thinking about Dorg is Dorg Captain
Dorg.
He was saying that Tog forgot what it means to be a Klingon. He says, "I need a loyal first officer. Soldier of the Empire does not spit in the face of duty." Okay, so now the question is what are the rules of taking command? Because you're supposed to kill your captain. At what point is that technically not being loyal to Klingon?
If you lose,
Whatever.
I think it just comes down to if you lose,
That's
then
just
ipso facto, it's a post hoc
That's just
analysis.
like football plays. They're always talking about in football plays.
It worked.
Well, if he got the W, then he's brilliant. If he doesn't get it, then he's.
It's you're only a war criminal if you lose the war.
Yeah.
Sadly, very true.
So it's kind of meaningless to say I need a loyal first officer when they're encouraged to take command.
And it's effectively it's localized propaganda because
it is.
He's just saying I'm right and fuck everybody else because he's the one who's actually not following order.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's specific rules they do need to follow though about taking command. If it's because is there such a thing as mutiny in Klingon culture?
Right.
Because is it just about taking command if you think they're being fucked up, or
I think it's if they fail, it's called a mutiny.
So it's if you take command and kill your captain, it could be something as simple as saying, "Oh, he was just full of shit. I thought he was full of shit," or "Oh, he was a coward." That's all you have to say, and and then you win, and it shows you're not the coward. And what's his name?
It's a problematic social structure.
The Stoffel God guy. What's his?
Toby Targ?
Kalis favors you. Toby Targ.
Toby Targ.
So I was not clear on the squirmy gawk. Their job was to refill the worms with blood.
I guess you gotta
You got to keep it. It's like a fish tank or something. You got to keep them going.
Got to clean the barrel out.
Because nobody likes limp gawk.
Oh, so they have to fill the bucket full of blood. I thought they had to fill the gawk itself with
I don't think so.
You inject blood into the gawk.
That's horrifying. No,
they suck out the blood out of the gawk and then you have to put it back.
No, I think
why would they do that?
My understanding of her job was that her assignment was the equivalent of cleaning out the live lobster tank or something.
Yeah. There was another question I had. They were making fun of one of the Klingons saying it's like, "Oh, why don't you work on a Vulcan science vessel?"
Yeah,
it made me think.
Avoid death and
Klingons have science. They must have. Do Klingons not have science vessels?
They totally have science.
They do.
Some kind of time changing science.
But they mentioned that on Enterprise, where on Enterprise the Klingons are not they're heading in that direction, but they're not quite as warlike. And there's that Klingon lawyer character who's all lamenting that they used to have all these brilliant scientists and lawyers and engineers, and now the warrior class is kind of taken over the society, and he fears where it's going to go. And then by TOS and TNG, Deep Space Nine, that's where you see the the society starts to break down a lot, especially with all the stuff with Duras. The whole fucking Duras family throughout all time has been horrible.
There's that whole Targ situation. It reminded Mock of Kor's hound at the Battle of Klakkelbracht.
Yeah, he's eating some kind of octopus or something.
Yeah, and that's
good.
What? Eating octopus?
He was eating some kind of tentacle with some suction cups on it.
It didn't look like normal gach. It looked like something else.
It was more like octopus.
But you were talking about that guy that he was getting wine for. He should have fucked that dude up.
Well, and that's part of the thing is similar to Boimler.
Like that would have.
He kind of doesn't. He wants to get there, but he can't. He doesn't necessarily get exactly all the rules or whatever yet.
But when it came to like true sort of the rule, you're right. It wasn't like he didn't know all. He wasn't savvy to all the rules and the political game and all the political game. But when it came down to like what honor's about, he totally stepped up. I mean, shit, some new ass guy fighting the captain, that's fucking difficult, man.
Yeah, for real.
That meant he was prepared to die. He would have made it into Stovelcore.
He's a real Klingon.
He's a
for real Klingon.
He's a for real
What's
Klingon.
What's that fallacy called? No true Klingon? The no true Klingon fallacy? All right, so there's a bunch of stuff in this story that's great. The purple blood, which is a reference to Star Trek 6. Yeah. By the way, we talked about Star Trek 6 in episode 20 of the podcast. It's one of our most popular episodes, if you want to check it out.
You probably already checked it out if you're listening.
You may have. There are there's some other Star Trek 6 references. Captain Dorg quotes Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, the whole thing that General Chang does.
It was when he says, "Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war."
Yes.
Klingons love Shakespeare.
Yeah, they do.
They do. Well, it's the original Shakespeare. Another tacit reference is the Mach giving that whole speech about Klingons have tried to disrupt the peace before and they failed. That's a Star Trek 6 reference on the one hand because of Admiral Cartwright and General Chang and their allies. That's the whole plot of that movie. It's also a reference to the Duras sisters, Duras himself, like all the Duras family shenanigans that are always trying to like get the Klingons to do crazy shit so they can take over, and they're all about destabilizing stuff.
The Klingon captain is listening to regular human opera.
He's listening to human opera.
Klingon opera.
I noticed that and in his study, all the weapons that were hanging on his wall were all like covered in blood.
Oh yeah, I was looking at those weapons. So he had a bat'leth, right? He
had a bat'leth. I forget the terms for the other ones, but one is a stick with a big blade on the end of it.
One of them is I think it's a mechleth.
Yeah, there's a mechleth. There's a lot of stuff on there. The captain's Targ.
I couldn't. Well, there was one with like two-sided spear, and I couldn't find the name for the two-sided spear one.
I couldn't recall.
This sounds familiar. Didn't we have this conversation a couple episodes ago?
Yeah, you can always write us in and fill us in on the details of Klingon weaponry. In fact, maybe we had this conversation.
Another lower decks.
Tarek wrote in and explained it to us.
I think that's
we've since forgotten.
Deja fucking.
The mechleth and the bat'leth obviously are very popular. But
those we've seen plenty.
The two-sided spear, I don't know. Like that must have been some obscure reference that came from one episode or something.
The long and the short of it is that the Klingon, all of the whole episode is animated great, but I think the Klingon scenes are where it really stands out, the atmosphere and how varied the design is. Like the individual Klingons are very easy to distinguish. They each have their own character, not just in the design style, but how they move and how they talk. All the stuff we're talking about in the captain's study it was just so moody and great. And that's not even considering the actual space battle parts, which were also really cool.
There was the whole hypocrisy of Dorg. The
hypocrisy of Dorg.
We find out that the Packlets have their power because of Dorg, who hasn't told the High Command yet.
Which resolves a long-standing question we had, that there was an assumption and clues that the Packlet were being puppeteered in some fashion or another.
Right.
Now we know it was Captain Korg, Captain Dorg,
Captain Dorg, Captain Borg, Captain Korg. But I mean, the obvious sort of implication there is it's hypocritical of Dorg telling others they're not true Klingons, like Tog and stuff. And all Tog was doing is challenging his authority. But he's the one who's being all sneaky and not Klingon-like, you know, so.
And what we see, getting back to your references to the culture of the Klingon ship, they're pulling from all sorts of Klingon lore from over the ages, but this is most similar to the TNG episode A Matter of Honor, which is the one where they have the officer exchange program, and Riker is like hanging out as a first officer I think he's the first officer on that Klingon ship, and he's going through this process of like learning about what the deal is on a Klingon ship.
Oh, right.
Getting into fights and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a cool episode.
Headbutting people, and like Riker's just kicking some Klingon people's ass.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
The fight choreography.
Let's talk about that episode next.
Yeah, we should.
I was unclear as to why the Targ turned against its master, because yes, we saw that the Targ was fond of Mach, especially because Mach like takes him out and is his caregiver. Gave him a
really nice. I think I imagine.
But in the end, the Dorg is its owner, so you'd think like
this is a dense episode, so it's possible that there was one extra beat that they couldn't include or had to edit out, because they already don't have a teaser, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the teaser's already out.
Right. That's a good point.
The Targ always goes to the true captain. He's the true captain, so he gets.
I thought they were just like dogs, though.
Targ.
I mean, maybe this is how Targs are different than dogs. But maybe there was also
you're just speaking on different metaphysical planes. I think Jesse is
like Targs.
Mythologically, the Targ will select the captain.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but he was nice to Mach. My understanding is Mach didn't just take him out to take a shit. Mach like really gave him like a really nice long walk and let him sniff and let him do like
an honorable movement.
Yeah.
He was
an honorable movement.
And meanwhile, we see the captain. Granted, it's after the fact, but after he gets attacked by the Targ, but he kicks the Targ in the belly. And
he kicks the Targ because the Targ's attacking him.
Yeah, but I think the implication is supposed to be is that was a well-practiced move.
Yeah,
and we don't.
That's probably what.
And we don't see the captain doing much interacting with the Targ. The Targ is there, and then the Targ eats the leg, and then he's ordered to walk the Targ, but he doesn't walk the Targ.
Yeah,
he's not saying like, "Oh, I'm concerned about my Targ," and he's not worried about the Targ's health. He's worried about smelling the Targ's gross farts.
Oh no, my Targ's gross farts. Oh, my Targ.
See, he's not a Targ person. He's just not.
He's not a Targ guy. He's more of a what's the Klingon cat called? I forget. They have something.
Yeah, they do have a cat.
God, I can't remember.
Oh yeah, those things are fucked up.
Yeah,
of course they are.
I want
Klingon.
I want one of those.
Yeah. What is Klingon cat? Klingon. It does. This was a bunch of. It shows pictures of cosplayers holding cats.
Oh no!
The internet has failed us. Can you believe it?
Once again.
Okay, I think it was the Tika cat. It says it was referenced in the Klingon Honor Guard video game. I don't know. But I wanted to mention that when the Klingon, I think this was Dorg went on the view screen with the Pakled for the first time, it was funny because the Pakled dude was looking in a different direction.
The Pakled are often looking in a different direction.
It's like as if he didn't know which way to look for the view screen, which is funny because you just assume everyone's always the view screen's right there. You just look at it. He thinks someone else is talking or something.
And
he doesn't understand. He's like,
I could be remembering it wrong, even though I saw it recently. But I watched the Samaritan Snare recently, which is where we're introduced to the Pakled on TNG, and I kind of think they did that on there too, at least once, where he was just like looking off in some direction. I could be imagining that, so I apologize if my imagination has.
The Pakled ship is called
Run away with me. Yes, it's called the
clump ship.
It's a clump ship.
Pakled clump ship.
Pakled clump ship. Pakled. Planet Cat Pakled.
Red alarm.
Red alarm.
It's fantastic.
You should eat. You were smart.
The Pakled Lower Decks is great. Everything Pakled is running. I also the low key joke that really got me. LOLing, as the young ones are fond of saying, was when Captain Dorg comes over, and then Rich Fulcher, the Pakled, he's like, I forget his name, but he's like, I am so, and Captain Dorg is like, we've met several times.
Oh, I think it's a Grishnar cat, actually.
Grishnar, that sounds familiar. That sounds.
I'm a
familiar
Grishnar person.
The other one was just from some video game.
Well, so
some video game.
So before we close out the Klingon portion and talk about the Vulcan portion a little bit. At the conclusion of Dan's musical interlude, I really want to talk about this fight scene because the initial fight scene is great. This second fight scene between it, and it's an extended scene. It's in two parts between Captain Dorg and Mach, because Mach first challenges him, and then there's a little punching and whatever, and then the like real fight starts, and it was so kinetic, and there was like the way it was drawn. I was like, it was super fucking intense.
Yeah,
and they mirrored the original fight with Captain Dorg and Commander Tog, as I mentioned. As I mentioned, Captain Dorg disarmed Commander Tog,
which was a very
and then stabbed him with his own knife,
which was an awesome detail in the animation. How they really they didn't just throw that away; they did a whole thing.
He did a move to grab the knife and stabbed him.
It was awesome.
And in this case, Mach stabs Captain Dorg with his own knife because Captain Dorg has the longer knife, that almost a sword-like knife that he is first fighting with. It gets knocked out of his hand, and then he pulls out a second knife, and that's where he's gonna finally doing Mach, but Mach has fallen onto that knife and then jumps up and does that anime style like and like stabs him.
Lunge.
But what fucking blew my mind,
like Taki from Tekken.
Soul
Calibur.
Not only did he stab him through the chest, but if you watch the uniform in the back of Captain Dorg is all sticking out and is all purple bloody, but the knife isn't quite piercing it.
Right.
So the fabric is all stretched out, and then they have that zoom in on Dorg's eyes where they go all like bloodshot and like it was a horrific scene in some ways.
It was. It was awesome.
I liked it because he was all like laughing, and then he was
he was like, oh.
I was laughing when he died.
It's always nice when the villain has at least a brief moment of realizing he fucked up, right? And you don't always get that because sometimes, like in depending on which edit you're watching of Star Trek 2, Khan thinks he's beaten Kirk as he's sort of like passing out. He activates the Genesis device and then he's sort of like falling down, and that's the last you see of Khan before the Reliant explodes. So you don't know that the presumption is that Khan never sees that Kirk actually ended up beating him. He might have died thinking that he beat Kirk, or at least tied with him. But in this case, we see it, and we see it happen. And it's similar to Star Trek 6 again with General Chang, where General Chang is fully arrogant until maybe the last 1.5, 2 seconds before he blows up. And then he's like, oh, fuck. So let's move on to the Vulcan tale on the Vulcan Cruiser Shovel.
I am available for chess.
Cheval, yes.
Do you notice, those ship sizes, the Packlet ship and the Vulcan ship were kind of comparable in size.
The Vulcan Cruisers are really big.
Yeah, those are comparable.
The Klingon ship is tiny.
The Klingon ship is really tiny, but
it's a bird of prey.
But it's like dense.
Yeah.
It's like a pit bull or a bulldog. It's like a bulldog or something. It's just muscle.
It's got
and then
some
the
guns on.
Cerritos is kind of somewhere in between. So I thought that was fun.
Cerritos is pretty huge though.
Yeah, it's pretty big
for not being
but
that significant of a ship.
In the Vulcan storyline, we primarily follow T'Lyn, who is, as we mentioned earlier, is a Mariner analog. She is very similar to Mariner in that she doesn't like following protocol. She doesn't wear her uniform correctly. She likes to follow instinct.
As opposed to an Ariner Manilov.
Yeah. But, of course, she still is a Vulcan, right? She's still acting like a Vulcan. I don't think they were giving us clues. Maybe, I could be wrong, but I don't think they were trying to say there was something shady about her. I think she doesn't fit in.
She's exceptional.
In her own culture, and it's similar to Mariner, who has some troubles fitting into the Starfleet culture. So it was really interesting seeing that, especially since Mach is the Boimler analog. Here we have the Mariner analog.
And Jesse, to your point about how she was trying to correct what she was saying, what the one part she was saying that she wanted to, and then she corrected herself to it's logical too. Right. Which that was interesting because then there was the other Vulcan that was talking about composing a piece for the lute. First of all, I guess like the lute has probably been invented in many different places. It's just why lute?
Oh, it's a Vulcan lute officially.
Yeah, but they just said lute. I don't know. But anyways, and why would you compose a piece of music unless you wanted to? What's so logical about composing a lute?
I don't know. I think the Vulcans will take all the fun out of a lot of stuff.
But yeah, maybe
But
it's
that's why they're so interesting.
maybe it's the same reason they have spirituality and stuff. But their spirituality is magical. It works.
Punitive spirituality.
No, it doesn't count as spirituality if it works.
Yeah. So well, that's not what I was.
It's called science. It's called science.
That's not what you're saying.
That's not what I was saying.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know about that. There's a debate there.
There is a valid debate there. Yeah, but you're pointing out the standard hypocrisy of Vulcans, and that's part of I think what this story is pointing out, at least from our perspective, because we see T'Lyn and we see her doing things that are correct. I mean, she is winning. all she's right every single time. But her captain's point is not without merit, which is, hey, you being right all these times is actually going to make this worse. And as a commander of this ship, I can't have that. You could argue whether or not that's the smart thing to do, but that's not compatible or seemingly compatible. Certainly not with this Vulcan captain's view of what Vulcan should be.
So I like the captain. So when she left the room, those Vulcan buddies were, said like she's lost all control.
Yeah,
but in this really gossipy kind of way.
Oh,
it was
gossipy.
just
again hypocrisy.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What's logical about that?
But yeah, exactly. But I like the captain. The captain seemed like the captain was just trying to do right by whatever Vulcan's culture. I thought the captain had a good point where he says at one point, your perceived victory today will only serve as fuel for further impulsivity. And that's true, because you think you're hot shit, you can just start getting away with shit like, what's her name, Michael Burnham or something. Right?
Exactly.
There are some analogs to the Michael Burnham story because Michael Burnham was largely raised on Vulcan.
And she's totally badass.
And she's totally badass. We don't know if T'Lyn is badass yet or not.
Nah.
We'll find out more. But
I hope we find out.
But what's interesting about this story with the captain is, on the one hand, we are sort of the story is designed that we identify with T'Lyn and we're sort of rooting for T'Lyn. T'Lyn views being transferred to a Starfleet vessel as a punishment. Mm-hmm. The captain. They have that joke where the captain is like, the way she said it was super polite, but he was like, it's that kind of outburst that justifies my action. But I also think we're intended to understand that the captain isn't necessarily meaning it as a punishment. He thinks he wants to do right by her.
It's like a sensible thing to transfer.
Right,
he thinks she will be in a better
She's
situation.
Starfleet material.
And he thinks she can help, but it's best not on a Vulcan ship, which is, instead of just being like how some people might just be like, oh, you're gonna go take lessons again on how to do your shit because you don't know what the deal is. But yeah,
he's being logical in this is where this person needs to go. She's going to be the most effective in doing this instead of being on my ship.
Her greatest outburst was probably though at the end when she totally flicked him off when she gave him the Vulcan said live long and prosper, sir, which is essentially like saying I'll pray for you,
it's a bless your heart.
It was like a bless your heart.
Oh, bless your heart.
Or someone calls you a name, then people go like, I'm gonna pray, I love you, I'm gonna pray for you or whatever. I don't know what people say. I don't say that, but
because you don't pray.
I don't even know what people say.
But she repurposed.
And if you ever say that, there's going to be.
What do you call that thing? The Vulcan hand thing.
It's called the Vulcan salute.
Vulcan salute. Yeah, she repurposed it to be like a fuck you.
Avoid death and cower.
Yeah. And even the captain knew what was up with that. He saw that shit. He was like, "Oh, you're being."
Because there's an earlier episode where Mariner does a sarcastic Vulcan salute, and her mother's like, "Don't do that sarcastic Vulcan salute."
It's mirroring in a lot of ways the Mariner story, including Mariner doing things that end up being the right thing to do, which have encouraged her behavior in that regard. Another thing that T'Lyn says that's along similar lines is when she's talking to her Vulcan quote unquote friends or peers, and that one peer is in the spiritual room, in the meditation room, basically saying, I'm going to tattletale on you to the Vulcan High Command, and T'Lyn says, then I hope they notice how concerned I am about their assessment, which is basically like, they can fuck off. I don't give a fuck what they think.
That whole scene awesome. in the meditation room was brutal. That was a brutal fucking argument like they were having. And it was also reserved and they were all so dignified or whatever, but that was an all-out war right there. I love the part where she goes, rebellions will only lead to punitive spiritualism.
Yes, I was like, what the fuck? That's a great line. Like the concept of punitive spiritualism. It's like, it's only going to lead to more punitive spiritualism.
That's the only kind of spiritualism.
And she quotes Spock from Star Trek VI, another Star Trek VI reference, when she makes that comment, logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end.
Yeah, she makes a lot of good points.
That sounded familiar.
Yeah, that was a Spock line.
But she does give a few smirks along the way, which kind of indicate, maybe she makes good points, but she is, a little bit outbursty for a Vulcan, I guess.
a little bit lippy for a Vulcan.
A little bit
lippy for a Vulcan.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say lippy.
I'm interpreting it as you having said that.
But the Vulcans that serve in Starfleet are the best Vulcans. Like, you always get all this cool story devices.
Maybe not. Maybe we've only seen it from that perspective. Maybe the Vulcans on the Vulcan ships are like really amazing.
Maybe this will be a different.
They're just a reject.
They send all the lame Vulcans to Starfleet.
Yeah,
but I mean that Tuvok guy is pretty tight.
Tuvok is super tight,
and of course Spock and that other girl on Enterprise.
T'Pol.
Back to the
Trip Tucker the Third.
Back to the point of her fixing the thingy,
the sensors.
Because, like I said, it's not like they had to change anything other than it just made it.
Did she say sensors?
Yeah, she did.
They've all, they said sense. They made it an acute point of saying sensors on the Vulcan ship.
It's not like she made one thing better at the expense of another. She just gave it more juice. It's like, I can see longer now. The only thing I can think that would cause problems is now you have to have different protocols as to when to do certain things, but.
We're clearly meant to realize that it's only an improvement, and these people they're highlighting the rigidity of Vulcan style society and command.
And I was wondering if it was strictly just adhering to because she brings up the point we're not Borg, we don't follow rules blindly. She doesn't say that to the captain, but is it meant for us to be like, this is the order of things and they're only doing it just to keep chaos from breaking out? Or is there something to be said about just because it seems like it's perfectly better doesn't mean it's going to be as good as you think? Like, there could always be problems and we need to figure this shit out before we do it.
Part of what makes this a great storyline is that is an open debate. Right? It's easy to have that be a debate as opposed to really thinking one way or the other. The audience is going to come at it from whatever perspective they're coming at. If they're into a more rigid structure, they might say, no, it doesn't matter if her ideas were good. She shouldn't have just implemented them on her own. There's a lot to be said about that. A lot could go wrong.
Well, they didn't even want her really studying stuff on her own.
And that's the thing. That's, I think, another key thing, because you can imagine in Vulcan society, just with everything we've learned about them, that they're like, it's illogical to do something that's not part of your job description. You've been assigned to do this. Some other person's designed to come up with new physics-defying technology.
Why is that one Vulcan composing a whole loot thing?
Because
that's free time. Man.
That again,
it's the most logical way to spend non-work time.
I refer to my previous statement that that is meant to highlight that some things don't make sense, because what Vulcans do is, the gag with Vulcans has always been
the gag.
Yes, the gag with Vulcans has always been, to varying degrees, that they do whatever they want and then they justify it with logic, right? Back on TOS, that was one of the things that the battle between Spock and McCoy being the instinctual, emotional, empathetic person, Spock being the quote unquote logical person. It's the melding of the two that are necessary. And that's where Spock has that line, logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end, which maybe I don't think is made clear in that movie, but I think the idea might be that logic is the beginning of wisdom is a common Vulcan saying. And then Spock adds in but not the end, because I'm Spock and I learned some stuff hanging out with these humans.
When the captain says that is getting on her case about adjusting the heading by 1.7 degrees,
1.21 gigawatts.
The audience is I would say that the audience is led to believe, that's just Vulcans being, so, concerned with minutia. They're trifling, those Vulcans, 1.7 degrees. Trifling. But when you're going through space, 1.7 degrees, that's a shitload, man.
Absolutely.
That's crucial.
You're using all sorts of slang terms.
Yeah.
Today. I'm impressed. That's good.
It's to distract myself from stresses and struggles.
One thing about the Vulcan captain in his quarters, you see a lot of things in his quarters similar to the Klingon captain. I didn't catch what everything was, but one of them looked to be, I presume it was a replica of the Kishara, which is that pyramid sort of obelisk-y looking thing. That was in an Enterprise episode, 4th season. I think it's from an episode called Kishara. where basically they find this thing that's supposed to be mythical or long lost or whatever, and it has the true teachings of Surak. And there's a plot line in Enterprise in which the Vulcans are not. It's not that they're not logical, but they've got only bits and fragments of Surak, and so basically you had a bunch of different opinions on what that meant, and there was a lot more corruption, and they were a lot more shitty, right? So you can still argue that Vulcans, as time went on, were still not wonderful, but they weren't like as prone to actual, like, just straight up evil shittiness, and they're still racist later, but maybe less racist than they were in Enterprise. But Captain Archer and T'Pol and others, they find this thing, and it ends up leading to a revolution on it is a political revolution actually on Vulcan. It's just not a violent one. But there's a reformation is probably a better term for it. And that the results of the reformation are where we see Vulcans at in TOS, TNG,
the reformation was pretty violent.
Yeah. And I think the Vulcan one in this case was less so. I think it was more about some other people won some elections.
Remember when on the episode when they went on that space station with the corrupt security and all that stuff, and there was the whole scene where they flying around in that thing.
You're talking about Lower Decks?
Yeah, Lower Decks.
When they were on Starbase 25?
Yes. And then they had that scene where they jumped through, some Vulcans were all doing some stuff, and they were like curious. I can't even remember what those Vulcans look like, so it's easy enough for me to figure it out, but I wonder if those are the same Vulcans.
What do you mean the same Vulcans?
As the ones in the Lower Decks, or am I being specious?
You're being a bitch specious today.
Oh, man. Today. I mean, with their haircuts, they all look alike to me.
Oh, man. Oh, Dan.
with the haircuts, with those bowl haircuts. The captain on this ship that had that little chin beard thing going.
Oh, that was weird. Yeah. I was trying to remember if anybody had anybody in like a normal state of mind as a Vulcan had facial hair. I couldn't think of anybody.
It's not like I called him
Mirror Spock.
They've had a few.
And fucked up Spock when he's hiding in a cave.
There's been a few Vulcans here and there that it's not a common thing, but they've definitely had a few of them.
I didn't call them. I didn't say Cardi Spoonheads or whatever.
No, you did not.
That one's really mean.
That's
sounding.
good.
That one does sound.
We're gonna have to edit that out, Dan.
I know.
Cardi Spoonheads.
That one has too much bite.
It does. It really does.
Cardi Spoonheads. Oh.
It actually makes me. I don't know if I'd want to hang out. Like, as clever as that term is, that I think we probably heard it the first time with O'Brien. In that episode,
that guy's got a problem
with his old captains. I on TNG. I don't know if I want to like hang out with the writer of that episode. As impressed as I am that he came up with that phrase, it
came from a place of truth.
Exactly, it's a little too on the nose. I think that writer was a little too familiar with base instinctual racism.
That new shield amplifier, though, that's the regenerative shield amplifier. It seems like that changes everything. It's another one of those Star Trek inventions that they'll never talk about again, but has the possibility to like change everything.
Maybe they'll talk about it in Picard.
I don't know.
There'll be some Picard Lower Decks crossover.
To me, it didn't look like it was some invincibility thing.
It just regenerated, though.
Yeah, I just think it was like way better shields than before.
Yeah, way better. I mean, I guess we don't know how shields work in general, but that made me wonder how they fix them in the past, if they just regenerate over time, or if they have to, get the engineers to like shoot some more goo into them, and this just does that process automatically.
Shield goo?
Maybe it automatically, it's self-injecting goo.
It might be in the technical manual.
For the audience at home, Dan is gesticulating in such a way to illustrate the concept of engineers shooting shield goo into the shield generators.
It's like a fire hose.
I am very uncomfortable.
It's like shoveling
very
coal.
uncomfortable with this.
It's like a fire hose, but you have to move it.
That's not a fire hose.
Move it back and forth.
What you're doing is not a fire hose.
Because there's pressure. And it comes out. It doesn't come out in a stream. It comes out in glops. So it keeps me. It's like boom, boom, boom. So you gotta make it go back and forth.
That's not a fire hose.
If people wonder,
it looks like
if people wonder why we don't do the podcast on YouTube,
it's because we would get thrown off the air.
This is an example of that.
We get thrown off the internet.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about that Vulcan storyline, or should we kind of talk about just the wrap up? I mean, it's important to talk about the final battle, how everything comes together. All the ships come to the same place. The Vulcan ship comes in and gets between the Cerritos and the weapons from the pack lead.
That one Vulcan did say it was improbable, highly improbable, that their shields were getting back. I think those are more than just better than average shields. There was something different about them.
Another gag with the Vulcans is...
They had that look.
Well... Talking about Vulcans again?
No, I'm talking about that Vulcan shields. Those shields had that look. You know?
The shields. I thought you were talking about the Vulcans.
Oh, no,
again.
I'm not being specious again.
It's the battle was really cool. It was kinetic. It was the animation was good. I mean, we've already mentioned that, but I don't want to let the podcast conclude without really commenting on being impressed with that. And the music was straight up James Horner style, Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3.
They've had that vibe for a little bit recently in Lower Decks.
Yeah, and
that kind of stuff.
They splurted in here, you know, a la Dan's special shield generating shield goo splurting. And by the way, they've got shield emitters, Dan. They don't need to splurt goo into the shield emitters.
Shield ejaculators.
Sure. Well, I'm sure it's about power transfer and distribution and the number of shield emitters.
It's definitely
and
about
the shield emitters getting burned out if you run them over efficiently. You know all that.
So you just got to
stuff.
let them cool down or something.
Something like that. I don't know.
These don't need to be cooled down.
Simmer down.
Simmer down. I think that's a Bob Marley and the Wailers song. Simmer down. It's back when it sounded like ska. It was like.
Didn't they have a song called like Stir It Up? So you.
Yeah, but that was more the reggae.
How many of their songs were about Bob Marley songs were about soup?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Souping.
That's a good question.
Back to souping.
You eat a lot of soup in Jamaica, I guess.
I don't know, but a lot of soup. Bob Marley was really into soup from my understanding.
I thought you were about to switch back to Star Trek.
Was he Bob Marley was into barley soup?
Marley soup?
Barley.
Bob Marley, barley soup?
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley's beef and barley soup.
Bob Marley, baby, Bob.
All right, so final battle was good. Music was good. They have been doing some more of those musical cues that they've been splurting here and here and there. But this was the most overt. Like this is just we're just slightly rearranging some James Horner style like battle music, and it's appropriate because this was the most intense battle, and it shared a lot in common with some of those other battles that we've seen in like Khan and Kirk and Star Trek 2. So that was cool. Any other major points to make, or shall we move on to odds and ends?
Odds and ends.
Snorbs and borbs.
Snorbs and blurbs.
Nooks and crannies.
When he's hanging with Boimler is hanging with the Hawaiian people, and there's something about how he grew up on a vineyard, and they're like
coffee or pineapple.
Coffee or pineapple vineyard.
He's like both.
Oh yeah, because pineapple grows on a vine.
I like the scene when everyone was rushing to battle stations. I wrote down everything that people were wearing. So basically,
pineapple does grow on a vine.
No, it doesn't. That's the whole point of me mentioning.
Pineapples are hilarious when you see the little pineapple plant growing out of the ground
like a monster.
It's just a fucking pineapple sitting on the ground surrounded by leaves.
I just had a dumb moment where I was like, vineyard. Why can't pineapples be in a vineyard after all? Oh, because vines. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
I think only grapes grow on vines.
Yeah, coffee doesn't grow on vines.
Neither does coffee.
Money grows on trees.
Sometimes. Okay, so
depends on the tree.
Everyone, as we know from the setup to this story, everyone's on doing their recreational thing, so they don't know all the stuff that's going on. And then when the shit hits the fan, when the Packlet and the Klingon ships start attacking the Cerritos, everyone rushes to battle stations, and it's that wonderful scene where you have all these people running around wearing all these goofy recreational things.
Yeah, that was great.
There were a couple people wearing TNG-style exercise leotards, the same ones that Counselor Troy and Dr. Crusher would always wear when they were doing their yoga and talking about dudes' penises. Because they did that, they had that regular segment they had on TNG where it was like Dr. Troy and Dr. Crusher talking about penises.
Yeah.
That was at least in a couple of episodes.
Yeah, that was a good recurring scenario.
There was
at least one episode.
What appeared to be a man and a woman dressed in Victorian garb, but not according to gender conforming style. So the person who appeared to be a man was wearing a the Victorian fluffy collar thing, like a Blackadder 2 type outfit. He was wearing a dress, and then the woman he was with was wearing a sort of a male Victorian some sort of courtier outfit. You had a couple of people wearing Anbo Jitsu outfits.
Yeah, definitely.
They were doing some Anbo Jitsu.
Somebody was dressed up like a ship's captain or Napoleon.
Yeah, it was. I freeze framed it, and I couldn't. I would lean towards Napoleon, or it's like ship's captain, but it was the sideways hat which made it more Napoleon-y. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have looked more like the Generations when they were on the sailing ship.
Right.
But it was the sideways hat that made it look more Napoleon.
Do you think they were using holodecks or holopods?
Some of them were.
You thought you had me all figured out, didn't you?
I assume holodecks.
I don't know.
I think
they got all those
holopods.
holopods.
They weren't given to them. They were brought there for training purposes.
Maybe
in the
they already
previous
had
episode.
them. You don't think they already had them?
She said they were pre-programmed. I don't know.
The Borg ship at the end was called 90182, which if you want to read into it, that's like, oh, that's almost like some kind of California zip code.
Yeah, like 90210.
It's actually a
90210.
Mexican zip code.
Oh.
I looked it up. 90182 is a zip code for some place called La Aurora. It's in Tlaxcala.
Well, they better watch out.
Mexican listeners set me straight on the pronunciation of that.
They're gonna be inundated. That poor town is gonna be inundated with Star Trek fans now, who are going on a pilgrimage to visit this town.
I didn't check on a map, so I'm not sure where in Mexico that is, like in relationship to the border.
Well, that show, Beverly Hills 90210, it's almost like it because you got the 90.
Yeah,
both have
exactly.
the number 2. Both have the number 1. Now,
Yeah.
the first one, the 90182, that has an 8, but the Beverly Hills has a 0. But 8's basically 0. You know,
Right,
it's like the
right.
same
It's like two
number.
zeros squished together.
Yeah, 0 is nothing, and
Or it's like a-
8 is infinity.
Or if you put it sideways,
Oh, that's
it's like
I didn't even think of it
it's
like that. That's
an
wild.
infinity symbol. Okay, there is another fellow wearing a Hugh Hefner
deep
style
in.
smoking jacket and smoking a pipe, which was interesting. And he looked like he just came out of his quarters or a library. There was just like a bookstore. And he came out of his quarters like looking around like, what's going on?
maybe he had a bunch of chicks in there.
Shax on the bridge is still in his sculpting smock. Tana's in her climbing outfit.
His hands still have clay all over
Yeah,
him,
and
too.
his smock. Barnes, of course, as we mentioned, is wearing some sort of ski bunny 1980s
Or
outfit.
perhaps figure skating.
Yeah, it could have been, but she had the
Either
little.
way.
It looked like skiing to me.
I think probably
She had
skiing.
poofies. Didn't she have poofies?
She had poofies, but you could have those ice skating if you're ice skating outside.
You're talking about earmuffs?
I'm talking about when you got poofies on your
The
hats
dangly
and your
poofies.
things. The dangle, when you're covered in dangly poofies.
Oh, okay. That's skiing. Yeah.
And
That's skiing.
in Canada they call them Montauk's. No, they don't.
In Canada.
You're just making shit up about Canada again.
We're gonna lose a big.
We've talked to you
audience
about this.
percentage. All the Canadians are gonna be like, "What is he talking about?"
There actually is a name. Montauk is a place in
It
somewhere.
sounds like a place in Canada.
It's
Isn't that in
that's a place-
Massachusetts?
it's- yeah, something
I
like
think it's
that.
in
It's a place in America. Yeah.
It's a toque. They're called toques. Those
Montouk?
No,
Are you making a Lord of the Rings joke?
Poutine?
no. This is real. The toque.
Peregrine took.
A toque is a toque rather. It's like a beanie style hat. But I think
That sounds cool.
I most associate them with poofies on them. But who doesn't?
Maybe they took them off.
What,
I get it.
Who took them off?
No, don't you get it? Don't you get the joke he just
they
made?
took them off.
He made a really good joke.
I made a joke.
No, Jesse made a joke.
You didn't make a joke, motherfucker.
They took them off.
Oh, that is a good joke. I'm sorry, I missed that. I was too in my own world. I'm sorry.
We apologize.
It
to
won't
the
happen
audience.
again.
Yeah.
It'll happen again.
All right. I know it's late. We're almost done with the podcast.
all right.
All right. More odds and ends. What are some other odds and ends?
It seems like you shouldn't have to say shields up when their weapons are powering up at you. You know, you'd think the assumption would be when the weapons power up, shields just go up. Because why do you want that extra second to wait for your captain to say shields up? It's like, what if the captain like is clipping their toenails or something, and then the bird of prey,
The bird of play sounds like a really cool club downtown that it's only open. It only opens at 2 a.m.
But the bird of prey
Like a pop-up bar.
powers up its phasers, right? And the
Pop-up sex dungeon.
and the captain's all trimming their toenails so they don't see it happening. But
Do you think the captain is going to be trimming their toenails on the bridge?
That's beside the point.
Depends on the captain.
Do they use a regular toenail trimmer or do they use like a Boolean
Okay.
laser toenail trimmer?
We're not addressing that. The point
Do
is
Booleans do hair or also
Stop.
pedicures and manicures?
no. Your second in command sees what's going. Your second in command.
Stop it, please stop it.
Your second in command sees that the weapons are powered up, but the captain's busy doing something.
Busy.
And so they can't.
Busy refilling the shield emitters
So they can't.
with shield jizz.
Wait. I'm making a point. So they can't bring the shields up because the captain didn't say shields up. Although sometimes Riker would say shields up.
Yeah, I think anyone with a certain level of authority can order.
Why
that.
should they?
I think if you have the con, you can say shit.
I think it shouldn't even be something you have to say. It should be an assumption because that's an extra half second. Still, that's when you're dealing with laser beams.
It's like
when you deal with laser beams.
It's like when you say somebody call 911. It's like,
Yeah.
well, why don't you fucking call 911?
you call 911. And that, by the way, real talk, that's a good tip. If you ever see somebody in distress, you start telling people what to do. because the problem with crowds is it's the diffuse responsibility. You have to start assigning responsibility to yourself and to others. Just point at somebody and be like, you go call the doctor.
Because nobody's going to do it.
Kick the guy on the ground in the side of the head to make sure he's okay.
This guy's in charge. I'm going to do what he says.
Yes.
So that's
a life hack.
I think it should just be protocol that if their weapons go up, shields should just go up. That's just what I think.
Think that is sensible. I think that's
sensorable.
Sensorable. To Lynn.
Dampeners.
To Lynn.
No.
Here's another odd and end. To Lynn, as we mentioned, is likely to come back to the show in some form. In fact, we might even assume, maybe it's a bit early to assume, but we might even assume, if you forgive us, that To Lynn might be posted to the Cerritos.
That would be fun.
If you make an ass out of you and me.
and if she's appointed to the Cerritos, how do you think that might impact the current character dynamics?
I bet Tendy's going to feel all insecure.
Interesting. I was thinking
she's like the new one.
I was wondering because she's similar to Mariner, so she might clash with Mariner. Boimler might actually find her cool because she's like Mariner in some ways, but a little less aggressive. Mm-hmm. I was even thinking there's the potential that T'Lyn could be maybe a romantic target of both Boimler and Mariner.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I'm just tossing out.
These are all possibilities.
These are brain scramblies I'm tossing out there.
Brain scramblies.
Tossing out some brain scramblies. That would. I'm just trying to imagine situations that would create interesting, dramatic conflict between our main characters by the introduction of a new character.
Right. I don't know, and I don't even know based on Tendy's personality if she would actually feel threatened by her, but it's just the whole new person versus the old new person that would. But but I think that what you were saying about
she might find Tendy illogical. Maybe they'd be best friends as a result.
What you were saying about T'Lyn and her relationship with Mariner and Rutherford and all those people, that makes more sense based upon what we know about their characters.
But of course, it's all who knows exactly. We're expecting her to come back in some way, but we don't know. Is it next episode, next season?
It's always good to have a Vulcan, I think.
What capacity?
It's always a good time.
Vulcan's going to be the person that's like, there's only one way to do it, and I've got to do it this way, and it doesn't. Where the human's going to be like, don't do it.
I like the idea of a Vulcan who doesn't want to be there, at least initially.
Well,
right? That's the other thing. She thinks this is a punishment, so she will be obnoxious in some way or another because she's like, Jesus, I got to hang out with these people eating fucking taco salads and porridge all the time.
It just occurred to me that Lower Decks doesn't have some kind of weird rad character. You know how TOS had Spock, and then TNG had Data.
Rutherford's sort of the closest.
DS9 is like Odo, I guess you could say.
Yeah, DS9 has so many non-human characters.
And then Enterprise, I'm not really
the out-of-place character.
The Voyager has the Doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be in Enterprise. Yeah, the out-of-place character, right.
Yeah, that's finding their place within a strange culture.
At first I was going to say, in Lower Decks, it seems like it's almost impossible to have a character like that based upon how it's embracing all of like Star Trek and stuff.
They're all kind of finding their place.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
by virtue of the premise.
They're all in it, but they're not. But none of them are quite as out of place as those characters that you mentioned. And like I said, Rutherford's sort of the closest because he's got the cybernetic thing. But he's got the cybernetic thing going on, but it's not at the same level as Data trying to be human or the Doctor trying to learn how to sing opera and sleep with women on strange planets where time goes really fast.
Or name himself.
It's not some character where we really have to challenge our own perspective and things.
And they're not offering a perspective from the outside in, which is what characters like Spock and Data and the Doctor and Odo, they, as a dramatic function, they serve as the character through which you can see humanity, or you can say whatever, the Starfleet, but effectively humanity from a different perspective, because they're making the observations that a human would not necessarily make because the human is already used to drinking root beer. And stuff like that.
No.
I guess you could say T'Pol on Enterprise, but I don't know.
I think T'Pol definitely on Enterprise counts.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, what's the deal with Klingons, man? They're always talking about writing songs about their good deeds. heroic efforts. Or it's like, go write a song
they're
about
old
me.
school epic dudes.
Is this a setup to a punchline?
They like
not actually.
Opera's all
Although
about
it sounded like
some heroic mythology.
Yeah, and Vulcans are really into that.
The epic songs of the ancient heroes, and
I'd say Vulcans,
Klingon.
or not Vulcans. Klingons are the biggest champions of opera in that sense. You'd think, because these epic stories told through this beautiful art form.
Because opera at first was just like you were just retelling, you were just using like mythological
Wagner
stories,
and all that.
Wagner like was making up his own shit. But like I think Mozart was the guy that was started.
Yeah, but
doing,
Wagner's stories were
different stories that weren't based on.
I can't remember.
Wagner was basing stuff off of like old Germanic tales. He made his own versions of them.
And Arthurian stuff. He was just kind of throwing stuff together.
Odds and ends.
I was trying to remember who was the one who was really into making like 12-hour long operas.
That's
and stuff.
Wagner.
That's Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner, because he would do the cycles. It
was all.
Did you notice Rutherford is playing with a seemingly complete DS9 model?
No, I didn't notice that.
Referencing the previous episode, a few episodes back, where they buy the DS9 model and they. Because there was that whole thing where he wasn't finishing his Cerritos model, because if he finished it, then he couldn't hang out with Tendi anymore. They learned that you can finish it and get a new model. But it's towards the end of the episode when they're hanging out in the latter half of the episode, they're hanging out in their lower decks quarters in the hallway. And while they're talking, he's lying in his bunk, just sort of fiddling around, just kind of holding this Deep Space Nine.
Oh, is that when Boimler opens up his locker and he's got the
Hawaiian stuff,
the Hawaiian joint,
that Hawaiian
a lei and a sort of Hawaiian shirt.
This is a tasty burger.
When they were playing Clue and Mariner was talking about it was the chef. First of all, that was
Raging Clue.
No, Raging Clue, yeah. I thought, first of all, that was a funny joke. Why do we have chefs? It's shady, But then I was thinking, like, is this some kind of backhanded stab at Neelix? But Neelix, because Voyager, did they ever establish that they needed a chef or not?
The idea was that they were going to save replicator energy, but they didn't really follow through with that. Yeah, and he still replicated stuff. And
he just burned a bunch of shit and made terrible stuff.
Invented weird coffee analogs.
Just doing shady shit all the time.
So it probably had nothing to do with.
They had a chef on Enterprise, but the joke with that is that you never met the chef. They were constantly talking about the chef, and as the series went on, they were all talking about like you don't want to aggravate the chef, and acting as if the chef was sort of a mercurial. Like a cool guy, but who could be set off easily and stuff. But you never. It was like the neighbor on Home Improvement, that old television show.
I thought that was
headed up by a cocaine dealer.
Yeah. I thought that was Kelsey Grammer for the longest time, who played Tim Allen's neighbor.
Yeah, they just had
sort
of a similar accent.
Yeah. Similar top of their head look. Wilson, you're a ball.
Odds and ends.
So yeah, Borg part at the end was funny, right?
Okay, I went crazy. I love that so much. And I think part of why that works so well is, first of all, you had this amazing episode, this dense, crazy episode with this intricate style and all this stuff, all these great jokes, great storylines, moving the plot forward, all that other good stuff. And then you have this Borg lower decks. As soon as you see the Borg cube, you know the joke. Before you even see the Borg, you know the joke is going to be that they're not going to do anything. And then they play it for the almost the remainder of the credits. And I know everyone sat there and watched the entire time. In fact, when I first watched it, I got super aggravated at Paramount Plus because it was doing that whole like, I'm going to go to the next episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to watch this entire. I know they're not going to do anything.
But there is no next episode. So they send you to a Discovery episode.
I know. I was like, I've already seen all these Discovery episodes, and it's not even like they're starting you at like season 2.
They start you in the middle somewhere.
Some of them random, whatever it thinks you last wanted to watch. Paramount Plus, you gotta work on your whole algorithm.
Tighten it up
a little bit. Tighten up those algorithms.
Come on, Paramount.
But yeah, that Borg stuff was great. I tweeted about it.
Not Beagorithms.
I tweeted about it, and Mike McMahon liked it, so that was cool that he liked
CBS-gorithms.
He liked that particular tweet, complimenting that tag.
Soon you guys will be best friends.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the whole business plan of this podcast is that I will become best friends with Mike McMahon, and he'll hire me to work on a TV show.
On Big Star Trek.
Yeah, because the Big Star Trek.
And he will specifically say, you're too good for those Dan and Jesse people. Those guys are okay, but they kind of suck. You're awesome, Patrick.
They're okay, but they kind of suck.
He's going to convince you to drop to drop us because we're.
And I'll be like, I'm
doesn't
still
like-
going to do the podcast, guys. Don't worry. But then the podcast will just not ever come out again.
Well, we'll do a couple, and then it'll just
We'll
kind
do a
of fade
bunch,
away.
and they'll never.
It'll be like the
aired.
Grandma's Virginity podcast, where months turn into years, and then there's like 5 years between podcast episodes.
And then we'll all do a hit cartoon series.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Make lots of money,
That's the plan.
just like that guy.
We're marching right along with that plan. All right, we gotta close things down.
I
So
think we're out of shit.
anything. One other one I had was
that's
that
all the shit.
Dorg uses that classic Klingon communicator. That I love those handheld, boxy Klingon communicators, just like Commander Krug has. We see it on a lot of Klingons throughout Star Trek, but in Star Trek 3, Commander Krug has it, and then Kirk picks it up and he's all like, Chewie, Chew. And then John Larroquette beams him on board, and he has to deal with John Larroquette.
Yeah, John Larroquette.
I was looking up to see if there was any kind of real life version of Stratagema, because that seems like it'd be cool.
Stratega.
Where you put things on your fingers and wiggle the
Yeah.
wires on your fingers.
Yeah, exactly. I would like that game. Sounds awesome. All 10 of your fingers are required.
I like how in our we have all this like touch lists. They can scan your fingers and stuff now, but we'd be like, no, we want the wires.
Yeah,
We want some weird googly wires on there.
Works better that way. But then I came across some Nerdist article that instead says there's a real life version of Star Trek TNG's The Game, which makes more sense because
Where it tricks you into becoming a traitor. Like, is that what they're talking about? The
game.
Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram?
Oh,
It's got to be
man.
one of those, right?
brutal. That's brutal, dog.
The game.
What you did is brutal.
Okay.
But that seems easy. That just looks like some cheap Windows kind of game or something. Oh, but it looks like it's augmented reality. Yeah, it's probably just some cheesy, stupid shit.
Is it still where you
all
use-
these cones are catching discs. That's all it is.
You put the disc in the cone.
Does
Yeah.
it give you like an orgasm?
Yeah, you put the disc in the cone and then you get an orgasm. And if you're Beverly Crusher, you're playing that game in front of your son.
Yeah.
it was. I saw that episode the other day and it was like,
I tend to avoid that.
no, it's a really good episode. It's a good Wesley Crusher episode, but yeah, the Beverly Crusher having like the shuddering orgasms.
Yeah, what's up with her and like, getting all passionate?
Gates McFadden is very sexy, and that's part of and I apologize. I'm not trying to depersonify Gates McFadden.
Objectify?
Yes, objectify
same
is a better term. But I think that actually makes me feel weirder about it because it's like, oh, Dr. Crusher, I respect you so much. And I'm kind of digging this and it's making me feel weird. All right. So that's the game and that's not this episode. That's not Wesh Douche. But that should do it for us, I think, on Wesh Douche.
We did it.
Excellent episode. Tip top. Keep it up. Keep it up, Mike McMahon and
Keep
crew.
lowering them decks. See how low you can go.
Somebody asked on Reddit, it was on some kind of Ask Science Fiction. They asked, why couldn't Data win the first game of Stratagema against Kolrami? And isn't that like kind of the point of the episode or something? It's kind of a funny question. There's no stupid questions. It's a good question, but it seems like you just kind of watch the episode and it tells you.
I agree. I'm biting my tongue because I agree in principle with the idea that there are no stupid questions, but in practice, I sometimes find there are occasionally stupid questions.
So it goes on to say, Data has a quote, a total linear computational speed of 60 trillion operations per second, end quote. So I would think he ought to be able to easily dismantle a mere humanoid at a game that relies on quick movements and logic, in spite of his opponent being a third-level grandmaster. I think he's missing the point.
Stupid is a subjective term.
And humanoid,
Stupid is as stupid does.
Data's a humanoid.
As Tom Hanks says in Saving Private Ryan.
This person says dismantle a mere humanoid. Data's a humanoid though too, so that doesn't track. He's a humanoid.
Most of them is humanoid
shape,
except for like the Tholians. And
he's humanoid shaped. I think you could make a
those,
distinction between the
Hortus.
android that looks like a humanoid versus because you could put Data's positronic brain in a big spider monster and he'd be fine with that.
What makes him an android instead of an automaton?
Because he can think. I guess? I don't know. Well, doesn't android basically mean it's a human shaped robot? I think it's because the android like anthro like
makes,
human
makes
like
him
the
a
prefix for
droid and
human.
me a noid.
Okay, that's enough for this
Oh
podcast.
yeah, Saving Private Ryan. You made a Forrest Gump joke. That was funny.
Here, that's good. Dan's catching up. All right,
Dan.
so we
Could have made a bosom buddy.
I'm gonna pray for you later.
bless your heart. All right, so that's going to do it for us this week. You can get us at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. Email in your questions because on our 100th episode, we're going to do a special episode where we respond to listener feedback and chat about, whatever questions you have about the Star Trek, us and the podcast, whatever you want to talk about, correct us, praise us, whatever the fuck you're into. Send those in to feedback@itsgotstartrek.com, or alternatively, you can join the rest of your friends who are interacting with us via the internet, via the social media, such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us at all those places by typing in @It'sGotStarTrek, or just type in It's Got Star Trek. That's good enough. Join us on YouTube. As we referenced earlier, we do not have active videos yet on YouTube. We might do some live streaming or something.
You don't need a video
sometime
on
soon,
YouTube.
but you can get the podcasts and highlights, the occasional bonus content on YouTube. And you go ahead and subscribe. Why not just have fun? Just go ahead and subscribe on YouTube.
What are you worried about?
It's cool. Just check it out. You don't.
It's
gotta
got
worry
Star
about it.
Trek.
And I know that
What more do you need? It's got it.
I'm not criticizing at all because I think this is good. It's good to promote and stuff. But I was curious because it's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to promote, your product and stuff like that. But presumably the people who are listening to us already know where to get it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it would make
They
more
already
sense to do this
got
at
it.
the front of the episode, but then that would aggravate people.
Yeah.
But you could
do what
have-
you can.
You could have the people who stumbled across this podcast one way or the other, and they're listening to it, and at the end part right here is where they can get all those details, where they can contact us or follow us or.
We could change
Fair
up
enough.
the format a bit, where we just sort of intersperse our sort of identification.
Well, we'll do that probably after episode 101. We'll have a whole new
format.
jazz.
We could have a soundboard that just has promotional bits, and
Yeah.
each one of us can press a button randomly when we feel like it.
We'll start doing
Twitter.
We'll start doing video.
On YouTube.
So look forward to that, folks. Look forward to some format changes designed to aggravate,
Big changes.
further aggravate our listeners.
Big changes are coming.
Because we like to test our listeners. You gotta endure some madness in order to stick with us. But hopefully, there's some small amount
think
of
people like
entertainment and some small amount of entertainment and distraction comes out of it. So. All right, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Apple Podcasts.
Spotify, Amazon. Get us anywhere. Subscribe to us because why not? That's awesome. Rate and review if you've got the time. Why not? That's awesome. Otherwise, in the meantime, get ready because next week it's going to be the Lower
ultimate
Decks
episode.
Season 2 finale.
Finally.
We don't know what it's called yet, but we're looking forward to discussing that and seeing what happens and seeing how they set up season 3.
What happens?
It's going to be fun. It's been a great season so far. I have a high degree of confidence in the next episode, so I'm really excited for it. And then after that, episode 100, listener mail, and then back to our usual stuff. And we're going to look into Star Trek Prodigy. I don't know if we'll cover Star Trek Prodigy episode to episode, but we're definitely going to be watching it. So we'll find an appropriate venue to comment on that show when the time is right. So keep listening, keep enjoying, and until next week, that's been.
I'm a fire starter.
It's.
I'm a fire starter.
The Prodigy. That's the Prodigy.
That's the Prodigy.
The Prodigy, which is a band from the 90s.
I got all confused.
The singer guy he's really just a dancer, He's not actually the one who writes the music.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that.
Until next week, it has been Star Trek. That should be our new thing. It has been Star Trek. All right, cool. I'm going with that. It has been Star Trek.
You're changing our whole brand?
It's always been Star Trek.
No. It's got Star Trek as the podcast, but at the end of the podcast, we say it has been Star Trek.
It was
That's
Star
being
Trek.
Star. How about that's being Star Trek?
That's like being affable
We've
and,
been Star
kind
Trek.
of whimsical and affable.
That's
and,
being Star Trek. A lot of people get aggravated when I say, like my wife, for example, when I say bean instead of bin.
I like being.
I can say bin, but
You
a
throw
bean-
rubbish in the bin.
Yeah, but you have been.
Okay, that's enough. There's enough podcast for tonight.
That's enough talking, baby.
next week.
Beam to where you been.
That's been
Beam to where you been.
That's been Star Trek. Next week,
Bean.
more. It's got Star Trek. We'll talk to you then. Bye.
Okay, let's snag a bridge buddy. aren't her head cloudy?
Oh, thank you, Ensign.
Boimler. I took a little Tamarian at the academy.
Oh, Unzak and Vila as children?
Right. Carno in the forest with Myra?
It is hard to lose weight when you can replicate any food you want.
No, that's not what I meant! Dang it!